siècle Vienna was expected to carry himself, both a result of what now seemed like careful training in the hands of his wise old mentor, the venerable Hayes, whom we will encounter momentarily. In fact, after some reflection, you might conclude that, as with so many heroes who were invited on extraordinary journeys, Wheeler's way had been prepared. Sometime after his mysterious arrival, in pulling together his initial impressions, Wheeler would detail in his journal his first moments on the Ringstrasse, the broad and magnificent boulevard that encircled the city, as awakening from a great sleep, floating between oblivion and consciousness. Anesthesia was an experience he had been through twice, once having his tonsils removed as a child, and once in adulthood in 1969 during surgery to repair a spleen ruptured by an angry Hell's Angel at a well-publicized rock concert riot. This time, he was not lying inertly in a hospital room, blinking at sterile walls and unfamiliar nurses, but rather coming to his senses walking along a magnificent wide boulevard, gaping at finely dressed passers-by and massive, grandly detailed buildings. His first recollections were ones of ambling aimlessly, smiling, gazing absently at these spectacular edifices with awe and elation, as if the mechanism that had delivered him to this fabulous place had carried with it, like anesthesia, the complete dismantling of any worldly concern. He must have entered, he figured later, somewhere near the Danube Canal and circled half the old city before enough consciousness descended to demand a verification of place and time. Wheeler found himself drawn to a newsstand where he picked up his first newspaper. It was then that he realized there was no other city it could have been, really. All of the impressions that led to this inevitable conclusion were rooted in the Hayes' vivid descriptions of the time and place, preserved in his famous random notes. But of course, Wheeler was at the moment much more concerned with practical matters than he was with the peculiar coincidence of winding up in exactly the time and place that he had heard described so often. First, he had to do something about his clothes. He was staring at the Viennese, predictable given his circumstance, but they were staring back, which, again given his circumstance as a stranger in a strange land, was not good. People staring, you might know, was certainly nothing new to my son. With his long hair and Wild Bill Hickok mustache, Wheeler Burden was on People magazine's 10 most recognizable list 5 years running in the mid-1970s, and, in the words of one of his grammar school teachers, had been something of a spectacle all his life. The Viennese focused their suspicious attention on him as he passed, not recognizing him specifically, as strollers in the 1970s would have, but simply wondering what a man in his late 40s and of his appearance, dressed as he was doing on the Ringstrasse. The style of the times and the crisp morning air made being out in shirt sleeves inappropriate, not to mention uncomfortable. This attention was giving him a deep sense of foreboding. Since strangeness, not notoriety, was drawing the unwanted attention in this situation, one in which anonymity above all was to be wished, at least until he had his bearings, he decided that doing something about appearance was his first priority. No matter how much a more cautious person, his mother, say, might have advised looking before leaping, he felt he had to act. So, just as he had made his way around the ring to the area of the opera house, he was drawn into his first action, a fateful one that set in motion everything that was to follow and established him indelibly as the central character in this story. Across from the opera house, near the grand entrance of the Hotel Imperial, Wheeler was stopped by the sight of a small serving man struggling to remove a heavy steamer trunk from a curbside carriage under the unsympathetic supervision of the trunk's owner, a stern and athletic-looking young man in his early 20s. The young man drew Wheeler's attention immediately, first because of his offensive manner, and only secondarily because he was a fitter, more compact, and younger version of himself, almost exactly Wheeler's size and build. Oblivious to Wheeler's attention, focused singularly on the unloading of his possessions, the young man burst out, "Hurry up, for God's sake! I haven't all day, you know!" His accent was clearly American. He thrust some bills at the struggling man and a note onto which he had written some large numbers. "Here, have it delivered to